Kamala Harris sat down with Bret Baier from Fox News for an interview, and it went about as well as most of us probably expected. Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I do appreciate you clicking on the video to watch it, and since you're here, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button and make sure that your notifications are turned on so that you never miss an upload or a live stream or miss out on any of the conversations like the one we are about to have now. So as we are all aware by now, Kamala Harris did sit down to do an interview with Bret Baier from Fox News last night, and of course, if you are on the left, you think that she did an absolutely wonderful job, but if you are somebody that is choosing not to support Kamala Harris because you know that she is as great of a candidate as everybody felt she was when she tried to run for president the first time as she is now, you know that this interview was a total disaster and a total mess. And you understand fully that word salads and just speaking does not actually equal an answer, which is something that Kamala Harris has become a professional at. But I do have to give her credit for being willing to sit down and do this interview because I know myself, I never expected this to happen because Kamala Harris really does rely on people who are going to coddle her, who are going to feed her questions in a very specific way that minimizes the level of accountability that she has to take for the fact that she has been in the White House for the last several years and is therefore largely responsible for everything that she claims to want to change now. We also know that she is primarily comfortable with audiences that are filled with celebrities who can carry that popularity for her, or on things like the Call Her Daddy podcast where she can focus solely on abortion and not have to answer anything substantive. So being willing to sit down with somebody from Fox News again is a huge move for her, though I'm not really sure what she intended to do with this because, as we know, most people have already decided who they're going to vote for. This probably isn't going to change a whole lot of minds. In fact, if it is going to change anybody's minds, it's going to be the people in the middle who were maybe hoping for a little bit more substance in her answers, a little bit more clarity, and still we did not get that. Now, as we know, one of the main issues that Kamala Harris has been pushed on is the issue of the border because this is something that has gotten out of control over the last few years. There is absolutely no way to deny that. We know that under Trump, he had these remain in Mexico policies. He had people applying for asylum where they were. They were working on building the wall. They had a much stronger border security system than they do now. And we know that when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden got into office, they signed a bunch of executive orders that pretty much reversed everything that was working at the time. And since then, as this thing has exploded, as it has wreaked havoc in so many communities across the country to the point where we cannot ignore that this is no longer just a border issue, but this is something that is affecting every single state in the country. And what I really appreciate Bret bringing up is not just the things that have happened under the Biden-Harris administration that we can all see with our own two eyes, is that these are the things that both she and Biden advocated for before they got into the White House. And he does bring up her positions from 2019. So let's have a look at that.
You said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, who governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So asking her about the things that she supported in 2019 is a strong indication of what she planned to do when she got into the White House with President Biden. And those are all of the things that have played out since she got there. So when she has a running mate that support these things, that have done these things in his own state, that is a strong indicator of what they plan to do on a federal level. But interestingly, I did find this article talking about the handouts that illegal immigrants have received because of the Biden-Harris administration. It says illegal aliens now have an on-ramp to Medicaid, as many as 22 million of them. This budding crisis is a major danger to our healthcare system and American taxpayers. It's the direct result of the Biden-Harris administration's immigration and welfare policies and will surely worsen if Kamala Harris wins in November. The Biden-Harris White House is shattering a system that was already cracking. My organization recently submitted state freedom of information requests on the number of Medicaid applicants who can't prove their citizenship status yet receive coverage anyway. When people apply, states typically check their citizenship status with the federal sources, but if the data doesn't match, states give applicants a 90-day grace window known as a reasonable opportunity period to collect documentation. The system wasn't prepped for the Biden-Harris administration's dangerous combination of lax border enforcement, welfare expansion, and lack of concern for welfare program integrity. Only 9 states meaningfully responded to our request, including Arizona, Kentucky, Missouri, Texas, and Wisconsin. Some states, like Pennsylvania and Michigan, claimed they had no records at all, while others, like California, demanded exorbitant fees to access the records. Regardless, the 9 responsive states showed that between 2019 and 2023, the number of illegal aliens on Medicaid grew by 500%. The expense to taxpayers has also soared. In the 5 states that provided financial information, taxpayers forked over nearly 550% more to cover illegal aliens. Across all 50 states, it's likely that at least 100,000 ineligible aliens are on Medicaid, potentially costing at least $1 billion a year. Kamala Harris doesn't get to dismiss this question as if it was just 5 years ago and therefore it is irrelevant, because these are the things that have happened under, again, the administration that she is currently a part of. This wasn't in the past. She's in the White House now, as many people seem to forget. But let's move on. In light of all that, Bret Baier then goes on to question her and provide actual names of actual human beings that have suffered and lost their lives as a result of these border policies, and immediately debunking the claim that he knows she's about to make about this being about this border bill, about blaming Congress for not passing it, and trying to pass the buck off to anybody but her and the Biden administration. And he is just not having it. So let's see what she has to say about that.
Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. That if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur.
Before we go on, at first I would like to know what harm is. Second of all, the resources she keeps referring to that the border agents need is not to secure the border. It's not to slow the flow. It's not to stem the invasion. It's just to make it possible for more people to get here faster, to process these claims faster, to drain our resources faster, to be able to get a hold of our Medicaid, free tuition, free education, free healthcare, free housing, all of the things that are being provided to these people out of our wallets, to be able to allow that to happen at a faster pace. So she keeps referring to these things that she plans to do. None of them actually involve solving this problem, and none of them actually ensure that we're going to see fewer of these cases. And in fact, if she is put into the White House, we are going to see this heighten at an astronomical level.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungari's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions.
I can assure you, Kamala, that that is who we are talking about right now in this conversation. And while she tries to put out there that she has been this champion of border security, that she cares so much about the things that are happening, and pretending to care about Jocelyn Nungare's mom and the anguish that she feels, the border agents have a completely different story. And if they were truly confident in what Kamala Harris plans to do going forward, they would be supporting her. But in fact, the opposite is true. For this article from just a couple of days ago, it says Border Patrol agents threaten to leave in droves if Kamala Harris wins, not doing this again. It says Border Patrol agents are threatening to leave the critical federal agency in droves if Vice President Kamala Harris wins in November, with multiple agents telling the Post that they can't face 4 more years of being undermined and scapegoated. "I'm not doing this again. 4 years of hell," said one agent, who is nowhere near retirement. Another agent said lots of guys who can retire will go. If Trump wins, they'll stay. On Monday, the Border Patrol Union, National Border Patrol Council endorsed former President Donald Trump. The Border Patrol has suffered massive turnover and plummeting morale under the Biden-Harris administration, insiders say. The agency has shed more than 4,000 personnel since October 2020, leaving about 19,000 employees, according to the Washington Examiner. So if this was truly about that border bill and Trump was the one who stopped it from passing, then why would all of these border agents be threatening to leave if Kamala Harris gets into the White House, knowing that she will have the ability to pass this bill? That doesn't make any sense. And that tells us everything that we need to know about what has been going on the ground in reality. And I know Kamala Harris mentioned how she had gone to the border and talked to border agents recently. She did that within the last couple of weeks for her photo op, and Border Patrol called her out for exactly that. And nobody bought this pretend show of caring about the situation now, when her actions over the last 4 years have demonstrated exactly the opposite. I do want to just talk about one where she is trying to make an issue of Donald Trump's health, of his mental health, which is rich coming from this person who just spent 3.5 years serving under somebody that we all knew was on the mental decline. Yet she was one of the first people, one of the front faces of telling us that Biden was fine, telling us that he was at the top of his game, telling us that he was sharp as a tack and that these attacks were baseless, and now trying to make an issue of whether or not Donald Trump is mentally fit for office. So let's just listen to a little bit of this exchange.
Unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable?
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump.
So clearly, just another word salad answer, gaslighting us into believing that what was going on right in front of our faces was not something that was actually happening. And again, not wanting to admit that she saw it happening, because then she would have to admit that she lied to us. But before we wrap up, I do want to check in with CNN and some of the people on the left to get their take on how this interview went, because it truly is about as entertaining as you would expect.
I think this strategy from Harris was a Google strategy. She wanted Fox viewers to start to Google some of the things she was saying, because some of the comments she was making in this interview are foreign to the Fox audience. For example, General Mark Milley saying Trump is a fascist to the core. That's barely been covered on Fox News. So she was able to get some of those talking points in. This was the most adversarial interview Kamala Harris has probably ever done. Instead of getting to debate Trump again, she got to debate Bret Baier. And a lot of viewers are going to come away saying, wow, she's willing to do that. That's a sign of toughness and strength.
Do they think that it's a sign of toughness and strength when Trump is willing to do the interviews that he's willing to do and the countless times that JD Vance has sat down with people from CNN and MSNBC and NBC? Because I don't see that same level of enthusiasm and praise when the people from our side are willing to do everything multiple times that Kamala Harris dared to do just this once. Second of all, when he's talking about all of these things that Kamala Harris apparently gave people to think about and to Google search, the one example that he gave General Mark Milley calling Trump a fascist, as if that is some kind of fact to Google search and review, which says everything about how these people think and what they think that we should be basing our decisions on. It's their opinions, it's their talking points, it's their rhetoric, it's their inflammatory statements. Those are the things that they want us to dig into and research and serve as the basis for our voting. So to end the interview, Bret Baier just basically said, thank you for coming in and saying everything that you wanted to say about President Trump, but people still have absolutely no idea what it is that you stand for, to which Kamala Harris responds, well, they can go to my website. If that was all people needed to do, then why did you bother coming in for the interview in the first place?
Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have
there
much more to
are
say,
a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why
I invite everyone to go to kamalaharris.com. And you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do.
And that's why we invited you here.
I think that says everything we need to know about how even she felt this interview went, when he's directly pointing out that you didn't really give us any answers. All you did was primarily attack Trump, as you always do. And then she's trying to use the last 30 seconds to pretend that she had anything substantive to say. And he's like, well, that's why we invited you here. We invited you here to talk about what you plan to do. And you used that time, despite being 17 minutes late, to talk about Trump. So that is a strong indicator about her entire plan, what she stands on, everything. She thinks just not being Donald Trump is enough. And unfortunately, for far too many of the Harris supporters, that is the case. She's a woman and she's not President Trump. So heaven help us all. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please be sure to hit that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed. I truly appreciate you being here. Please be sure to check out some of my other videos. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.